Good morning, everybody. I am live with Kyle McCord. He just took 9th place at the Kansas City Open, hosted by Games Workshop, with a super awesome list that combines our beloved Grey Knights with the fodder of the Astra Militarum. They will definitely not be brain wiped and or killed right after the battle. That's definitely not happening. But anyway, I wanted to thank you, man, for coming on my show and teasing me with sexy cat photos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the way I can't do one without the other. And thanks for having me on. It's a delight to be here.
Awesome, man. I mean, like, we haven't seen a whole lot of Grey Knights placing very well lately, so my channel's been a little quiet. But saw your list, saw it not only do well, but be super interesting. Like, okay. I mean, you're losing Tides. I guess we'll get into that in the list. Anyway, I'm stoked to talk about it, but let's start with you, man. How long have you been playing? There goes Sylvie right there. How long have you been playing? Why did you choose Grey Knights? Like, I guess how did this? Yeah, just go for it.
Sounds good. Yeah. I did the math this morning. I think I've been playing for 6 years. Before I actually played back in second and third, way back, and then I took 5 editions off, and so I did not play until 8th. And when I came back, I initially thought, oh, I'll play. What really happened was I said, oh, I'll play some Death Guard, and got into it, thought they were really cool models. And I was like, I'll play some Drakari.
Oh no, you
now
did
I
one
own
of
every
these.
army.
Yeah, I see how this goes.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, it was a little bit like I was like, I'll just do a little crack, just like a teensy bit, and see how it goes.
Just a bump.
Just a bump. Let's see how it plays out.
The first one's free.
First one's free. Yeah, first one was not free, actually, as it turns out. So it was, at any rate, what happened was I got. I'm gonna walk over here just a little bit because she's trying to get in. All right. So, why Grey Knights? Why Astra? Right. So, Astra was the 4th army I built, and I just loved them. Right. I loved the little guys. I loved the put it this way, sheer quantity of what you could put on the board, right? And I thought that was bananas. And then once I figured out what Demolisher cannons did, I was like, holy frackin' Toledo. These things just put out huge, unbelievable amounts of firepower, right? It's variable, but man, when they hit hard. And then I have, once Grey Knights got their new book, I had not played them at all. And I was used to the old version of Grey Knights that I admit I didn't like very much, which was like, how many paladins can you put on the board?
Oh,
you're shooting through a wall.
The old double paladin bomb from 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily my play style. But what I did love was when they were like, you know what's gonna be good? Dread Knights. And I was like, holy cow, love that. Right? 2 up, 4 up is awesome. Being good in all phases is awesome. I really like armies that play every phase, that are interactive. I'm not necessarily a sit behind a wall the whole game guy. I'm not really a, I rushed at you. How many of my guys can you kill? Now I'm either going to kill you or I'm not going to be alive, right? Those aren't necessarily my play style.
So
what I love is.
Didn't you just say Drakari?
I own them. Although Drakari do play all phases. When they came out, the problem was that they did play all phases, because they were like, we shoot super hard, we stab you super hard. Because they were like, oh, here's 50 million Dark Lances, and we get to reroll.
Oh, you're talking about 9th. Yeah, they don't play in the psychic phase by design.
That's true.
But yeah,
that's true.
I got you.
I mean, they with all of their movement, you would think that they were playing like 5 different phases, because they're like, I'll charge and then I'll do this other thing, and I'm a succubus and I'll fly over you, right? Like crazy stuff. But anyway, that's the long answer to the question, which is Grey Knights just got a book that was super cool. Nothing else in the game, as far as I know, gets to, when shot at, disappear and reappear.
No.
Right? That is a bananas trick.
Yeah.
Right? Or they don't. No one else in the game, as far as I know, gets to say, "Here's a spell. I'm just gonna flat reroll all wounds." Right? And it's not even that hard to cast. Right? I could be wrong about that. That might exist elsewhere, and there are certainly plenty of ways to do it. But just putting it on your normal troops, that is crazy, right? That's a huge amount of output. So that's what got me there.
All right, so you saw the synergy between all the models that you already had and loved, and you just wanted to stick them on the board. Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I know there's been a lot of talk. I've seen it now in like the Discord. I've seen it on various Facebook groups. People are like, "What the hell is this list, and how did it do this well?" And honestly, I would be surprised if you weren't already on Goonhammer. Somehow, because they do those like weekly, meta
They do.
meta roundups.
Reddit.
Are you on there?
I
Oh
am.
yeah, I've seen it on Reddit as well. Like folks are just like, what fucking list is this? So we're gonna get into this list right now because I also want to talk to you about it. I've got it up on the screen right now. So I'm just gonna do a real quick overview. Anybody in chat, please ask any questions that you have. That's why we do this live. So we start with a patrol detachment of Astra Militarum. We have a tank ace. Your regimental doctrines are gunnery, experts, and spotter details. So I know one of those lets you reroll the amount of shots on your cannons. I don't know what the other one is. I think that's gunnery experts that lets you do that, right? Plus 6-inch range?
It is. Okay. Plus 6-inch range, and any vehicle gets to reroll number of shots. So it's demo cannons, plasma. You don't reroll heavy bolter, obviously, but um, the key thing is it allows you to. One of the things that's insane is it allows you on the Lehman Russes. So let's say you're like, oh, I rolled a 6 and I rolled a 1. I got good news for you. You don't have to reroll both.
Just reroll the 1.
Right, and with the D3, because the two sponsons are D3, people are often surprised that those blast if you're over 5, because it's not 2D3, it's D3, and then it's D3. Right, so if you're over 5 models, I get 6 shots with the thing. Right.
Okay, so kind of like plasma inceptors who just get max shots like the second you have over 5 models. Okay,
that's exactly right. Yeah, and so with those two traits, I don't give anything to the infantry. It is hypothetically true that the mortars shoot 54 inches. It might surprise you to learn that I barely ever shoot them. I often forget that I have them on, to be honest.
I've never seen a bat rep or anything where the mortars did anything worth a damn anyway, but you know. So getting into troops just real quick, it looks like you brought the minimum infantry squads, 3 of them. You got a couple special weapons with plasma guns in there. You got the mortars, and then it looks like you brought the Voxcaster, which I assume means that they're always in range of reroll 1s to hit or something like that, right?
It means they get orders at 18 inches. Okay. That's really important. So what happens is when I want to go steal a point, and bear in mind all this crap is free. I'm not loading them down, right? When I want to move them, I can move them. I can run them out, and then be almost like 20 or 24 inches away. Voxcaster them, right? Well, yeah, I can be pretty far away because you can spread them all out, and then you move them onto a point and steal the objective.
I mean, the fastest thing in the game is a guardsman squad with move, right?
Commissars are really scary, is what you need to understand. And they're like, cool, I'll do it for the Emperor. They're like, I'll race out there to do battle. What they don't know is that's not actually what they're doing.
So these guys are just cheap obsec. You put them on a point, you say, come get me, and then you have other threats that they have to deal with and maybe not kill your infantry, right?
Oh, they kill the infantry, absolutely. But they also are amazing at standing 1.0, 1.0000001 wall away from a wall so that you can't charge them. Um, they often mysteriously don't die to shooting or leadership because you can do goofy things. Like you can be like, okay, cool, you did 5 wounds to me. I'm going to put 2 of them on the mortar. And so then I only lose 4 guys, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I actually didn't take the minimum there. I took the maximum. I took 3
Oh
because it's a
wow,
patrol.
guardsmen are
I only
cheap.
are, right? So
Guardsmen are
so
so
60
cheap.
60 a pop. Um, and so their job is to go out and steal objectives. And they're amazing at doing things like when Nids are like, I'm gonna pile a whole bunch of termagants in the middle, right? Cool. I can kind of do that too, right? I have a sheer number of bodies, so it compensates for some of the GK stuff where you just don't get the number of bodies that you need to. Or if you're like, oh man, there's this unit and I don't think I'm going to make the charge, shit, just throw the move guys at them, vroom, 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 right? That's fine. Like they aren't going to do anything else, right? But it's like it's a trade that you get to make.
Yeah, that's so like every army I've picked up so far has been elite in some way, and so like I've never had shaft to just throw away. You know, the closest I get in any of my GK lists are some servitors, and I don't
Servitors are dope. Don't get me
like
wrong.
I don't throw them away because I usually bring them to be doing specific things. You know, like doing an action in the middle or whatever. So I don't want to just throw them away. You know,
Right, right,
but
right.
so let's keep moving on. So that's your troops in that patrol. Let's go to your elites. You have an astropath, and there's a power here. I don't know what it is. I've
Sure.
never even played against guard. I should probably mention that I'm a newer player. So I don't know what psychic barrier is. Is that a feel no pain or is that a
It's
invul?
+1 to save.
Oh, okay.
It's nuts. Okay, so this guy is like 35 points of insane. So the first thing that he does, so first of all, if you shoot at him, he will 100% die. He has he has a 6-up
Welcome to
save and
guard.
no invul. Right, he's got 3 wounds, so he also blows himself up like a boss, right? So the psychic power, believe it or not, they have not nerfed this, is 6 to cast, +1 to save, anything you want. Put on your Lehman Russ. Your Lehman Russ now has a 1-up in AOC. Good freaking luck killing that, right?
Like a paladin.
As a paladin, right? Is bananas. And then to boot, they just threw this on the data sheet. They're like, oh, and by the way, you pick a unit within 18 inches of him. That unit does not get cover from anything you shoot at it with guard.
Oh,
So you're like, and you don't have to see them. So the guy's sitting behind the wall. He's standing next to the tanks. He's like, cool. That unit has no. And I never. The number one question people ask me about the guys, they're like, wait, he can do that without even seeing me? Yeah, he can do that without even seeing me. So because he's got the power, he sees into the future. He's like, they're there, right? And
his third eye.
his third eye, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't allow him to dodge bullets. I'll tell you that. And
Nope.
so the real reason that the Astro is in the list is I want to psychically interrogate like almost every game, and I don't want to do it with GK because GK are like if you're playing Nids, sure, I want a 3d6 it so you can't deny it. If you're playing Tau, that guy is 15 points because he's just gonna like run around finding places for me to interrogate.
And
But
he's a character, right? So
yes,
he gets character protection and everything. Okay.
he does. He does. He does. He also is an assassinate trap because because I have 6 characters. So it's like, oh yeah, come kill my characters. By the way, one of them's a GK and 2 of them are tanks. So like that'll be fun, right? Also, one of them's Drago. I guess I should mention that
Yeah.
too, right?
Drago's a beast. Yeah.
Drago does not like to die. He doesn't. Well, when he gets hit with a melta, he likes to die. Other than that, he doesn't really care.
Rip.
Rip.
All right, so cool. What's the telepathica stave? What's that do? I assume
I
that's
don't
a
know.
relic.
No,
You don't know.
no.
I don't know. Whatever.
No, he
Is
has
that not a
nothing.
relic?
He has.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay.
it's a. I believe the correct answer is believe it or not. I think it's +1 strength, no AP, D3 damage. He hits on a 5 in close combat and gets 1 attack. If it's
Ooh,
come to that,
watch out.
uh, things have become truly desperate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he hangs out mostly with the next guy on this list, the platoon commander, who is just cheapest. He's cheaper than some pieces of gear, and his job is
Oh yeah,
to
man.
give orders. Yeah. Um, they gave me
25 points.
25 points, And he goes, "You guys go over there." And the funny part is, he can order himself if you're ever like truly in a bad spot. If you're like, "Oh, I killed all the stuff off the middle. Now I need to go get that point." He goes, "Okay, cool. I'm going to run, and then I'm going to run again, and I'm going to go. I'm going to go step on that point and get a 12 at the end." Right. I don't know why don't know why he motivates himself so effectively. He's just like, "Yeah, me, do it," right? And then he goes and does it, right? So
Go buddy go. It's like the
go,
old
buddy, go.
it's like the old 8th like HQ like chapter master rerolls that would affect everybody including themselves, and now they don't work that way. So
he's just like, "Drink this Red Bull, me," and then he just like runs, right?
You have a full payload Manticore, which I assume is mostly there for out of line of sight, just threat. Nobody takes Manticore without paying for full payload because they're terrible without it.
Yeah.
What is this doing in the list specifically, other than just being an out of line of sight threat?
So I actually added that late. I was not a huge fan of that unit. I hate hitting on 4s, but here's the thing, man, that I realized: when it does hit, it's so crazy damaging. Like in my one game against Nids, I was like, turn 1, let's just go ahead and take the Spore Assist off the board, just flat, right? Because 4 go through, it's gone, right? So then, and also because I'm rerolling number of shots, I can't reroll both on that one, unfortunately. But if I roll a 6 and a 1, then okay, I'm going to reroll the 1. Get something better. So I what it exists to do is solve problems that I can't immediately solve. It's great against Xenos, right?
Artillery does generally.
It does, right? When you're like, and so you think that it was probably going to pick up armor, or that's what I assumed it would do. That's actually not what it does. Oftentimes it'll be like, you know what? I want my opponent to spend CP. Cool. I'm going to shoot at that at some warriors. Now you have to, right? You have to say -1 damage, right? I want my opponent to be worried about X or Y or Z, right? Okay, I'm going to shoot the Manticore at it. Or so it costs a 155. That thing probably doubles its points every game, right? I wouldn't do 2 because you run out of good targets, honestly.
Oh, really? Huh.
Okay. Yeah, because
like I said, the thing, man, I've never played against guard even, let alone played guard myself. So like a lot of these keywords and things I'm asking you about because I have no idea how any of this works.
Yeah, I mean, no, almost no one does, right? Almost no one plays guard. I mean, there are some strats in there that would. Here's the funny thing about them: they get like 18 garbage strats, and then they have 3 that are like, wait, what? Like that are bananas, right? Like you start reading, and you're like, oh, I can spend 3 CP on a 4-up, do a mortal wound to you when I die. That's a real strat, by the way. I called fire on my position. It is incredibly bad.
That is really bad.
It's also right next to Vengeance for Cadia, where you're like, wait, what? That's insane. 1 CP, reroll all hits and all wounds against a chaos unit. Turns out that is what the kids would call deeply unfair. So
is that what the kids call it? Is it not on fleek
that
anymore?
That is definitely what the kids call it. There's some other words they call it that I'm not going to say on your podcast, but yeah.
I don't care, man. This is an adult podcast. I always flag it as unsafe for children. So
unsafe for good, yeah.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I think that they would start off with complete bullshit. That's what I think it would lead off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Chaos is good right now, so that works out, you know.
Dude, you know how long I waited for Chaos to be good? I've been like, dude, I got Vengeance for Cadia. Please, someone play Chaos. Like, you have no idea. And in that tournament, everybody was like, I don't want to play against demons. Oh, demons! I got 50 flamers. I was like, oh, please just put me in. Like, that's all
please
I
give
want,
me.
Right?
I got something to do with 1 CP every single turn.
Dude, when I was playing against, I will get into it. When I was playing against Death Guard, I was like, why do I have no CP this game? And I was like, oh yeah, 1 C point, click delete. I forgot about that. Right? It's like an amazing. There's an amazing tax where your army is just like disappearing, and I can't remember why. Right? Absolutely.
That's really good. So before we get done with your guard patrol, we have to talk about why, like, probably why you actually brought them, which, like, everything else was, you know, it's good. It's like, it's obviously part of your recipe. Like, you you chose those things wisely for a reason, but you really brought them for the 2 tank commanders with the plasma cannons and the demolisher siege cannons. Because who doesn't like, what is it? Is it D6 shots, strength 10 minus 3?
2d6.
2d6. Oh,
2d6.
Jesus.
Strength 10 minus 3. D6, and it's re-rollable. And so people were like, man, I can't believe you get like 9-10 shots on average. Yeah. It is called I would not like you to be alive anymore. And so I actually, the previous version of this list that I ran for a long time did a hilarious thing too, where I would do tank aces on them for -1 damage, so that they were just like nigh unremovable, right? You shoot at them with the rail cannon, they're like, ow, that hurt, right? And then they pay 1 CP, active full, and you're not there anymore. And so the tank commanders exist to say, if you move into the open, I don't care what you are, you will not be there anymore. 30 termagants with 5 up, cool. I'm gonna blast them, right? And so yeah, I get 18, I get 21 shots out of the things. They're hitting on 3s, they're re-rolling 1s because they get orders. They order themselves because it's still 8th edition, right?
Yep.
And they're like order, roll real good, right? And they do that. So in the worst case scenario, they're hitting on 4s. But generally they're running around, and you can do all sorts of things to them. Like if they're at 6 wounds, you pay 1, you put a wound back on them. If they're at 3 wounds, you pay 1, they behave as though they weren't damaged. If you're playing against knights or a vehicle and you really want it to be gone, 2 CP, you get maximum shots. So you're just
straight
like,
up,
cool.
you get 12 shots. That's strength 10
you get
minus 3.
21
D6
shots
damage.
because you max plasma too.
Oh, it's not just the demolisher cannon.
No.
You.
Every weapon on the vehicle. It's called Hail of Fire, I believe.
Nice.
And so people forgot that there were 5 good units in the guard book. I did not.
That's amazing. That's so many shots. Like, that really does fill a niche where, like, I love my Grey Knights. First army I ever had, first army I painted, like, first army I played, whatever. The lack of any shooting over strength 6 for the most part in that whole book is just gnarly. Like, it feels so bad when you're going into knights or whatever until you get stuck in, right? But like, you know, you chip a wound here or there with a stormbolter, you maybe get 1 or 2 wounds off with like a smite, and then you kill it in melee, but it's like feels so bad when you're in like standoff range and you're just getting schwacked by like Tau shooting, you know, with all their plasma.
Oh man.
And
minus 4, 3 a hit. Ow! It turns out that feels bad, right? No, I absolutely agree. That's what I love about Grey Knights is everything about Grey Knights is amazing. Other than because they're pre-AOC, they were like, AP 1 and 2 will be fine, right? And
yeah,
it's like, no,
that's
man.
a good point too. AOC. Yeah.
No, the number 1 strat that I use for Grey Knights all the time is +1 strength, +1 AP, +1 strength, +1 AP. Put it on the DKs, right? Like now you're -3.
Psychic Onslaught, right?
Yeah, I think it's called. I only call it +1 strength, +1 AP, so I don't actually even remember. It's called Shoot Better, right? You know, and or like even when you have to pay 1 CP to be like, cool, I'm gonna auto wound on 6s and I'm 1 AP on the bolters. It's like that's great in some circumstances. If I'm playing Xenos, that could be really helpful. But like for the most part, it's like, yeah, I wanted more AP, right? Because I love the DKs. When you put out your 30 termagants, right? When you put out, say, oh, here's a giant blob of scarabs, they're like, oh yeah, right? Like they'll just mow that down, right? But if somebody's like, I have a land fortress and it's gonna ignore the first damage you do to it, right?
Botan.
Like, oh my! I played against that this weekend.
I play them too, so I got boxes and boxes of stuff to build now.
Oh yeah, I got my little Ninja Turtles van that I built last night.
Man, Space Dwarves just like had me. I was like, take my money, you know.
Oh, absolutely, right. Even when they got the nerf, I was like, they're still cool. Doesn't matter to me, right? Like I'll still build them, and I will tell you, we won't get into this, but playing against Votan this weekend, that list is no joke.
Oh, you played him in the. That's right. You just went 4-1 at another tournament as well. So we're talking about 2 weekends ago for this one.
This was this weekend. So 2 weekends ago was Kansas City, and I
that's
just
what
played.
That's okay.
Well, we won't get into that, but what I'll tell you is Ninja Turtle van. I was just like, I'm not going out to deal with that because the guy's like, oh, I get to it gets to auto win you on a 6. I don't like that. It's got a 2-up. I don't like that. You don't ignore it. You reroll wounds. And also, by the way, the first like thing that goes through that you don't like, you're just like, oh, it'll be a 0.
Yeah, the iron kin forge master or whatever is crazy good because it's not like the Helix gauntlet where it's the first damage. It's the first one you want to ignore.
Right.
So you can't even plink it off. Yeah, it's so good. But all right, we're not talking about Votan right now. So let's
I know.
All right, let's get into the point or the part of your list that I actually understand. So we have a patrol of Grey Knights. You went Prescient Brethren because everyone does now for that sweet CP regen. Yeah. You have the Grandmaster and the Dread Knight. We see this all the time. They're always built almost exactly the same way. You had to put divination on him because you just don't have that many characters. Because you have guard.
Sad story.
Yeah. But otherwise, this is exactly what we see all the time. Love this guy. I love Servant of the Throne, which is like, if you target me shooting, I'll piss off and go somewhere else that you don't want me to be. Love that. You got Drago because he's a mini librarian. He's tough as nails. Like, the 3-up invul is insane.
Yep.
1 strike squad because you have to for a patrol. And then a whole bunch of interceptors, and finally the creme de la creme, 2 more Dread Knights. So you have 2 tanks, 3 Dread Knights on the field, lots of vehicles. Are you like worried about bring it down or anything like giving up that secondary at all?
Every kill secondary is a trap into me. So it is. Most people who play me never kill even Blood Angels, who was like all on my face like in the game. They never kill more than 2 or 3, right? Because killing the Russ is a huge pain in the butt. Because okay, let's say you charge into me, you're like, cool, I got AP3, cool, that's 4-ups, right? You also I'm T8, so I'm hard to wound, right? And you have to have gotten there in the first place. The GK dies almost every game because he goes out and is like, I'm going to just be the absolute worst human, right? He's like, I'm going to come up. I got objective secured. I'm going to steal your objective. I'm also going to cast all these terrible things. I might leave. I don't know, right? Like I might walk out. You don't know, right? Most of my opponents, by the way, told me in advance. They were like, just as a rule, I'm never going to shoot at him because in case I forget, and and I'm not a gotcha player. I'm never going to be like, you shot at him, he left, right? Like people are like, because you can't just chaff shoot him, so you can't just be like, I'm going to flick a couple wounds into him.
Yeah, it's not the first time he's targeted. It's you get to choose. Yeah. So if you want to fire some las guns at me, I don't give a shit. Like, I'll just save on 2-ups. But like, if you even wound me. But yeah, if you're gonna fire that railgun at me, I might bounce.
Yeah, I think I'll walk on out of there. Yeah. I played against Tau this weekend, and they were like, "Oh yeah, he can do that, can't you?" Yeah, I'll just leave. Right, I'll be the bigger man. Right. I'll be the biggest man. Let's put it that way. And so, yeah, that guy is that's actually one of the things I figured out fairly late. Was I was like, dude, Sigil of Exegesis is bananas. Right? Is just like you go anywhere you want, and especially when
I'm sorry.
Okay, servant.
I call it Servant of the Throne, but that's the 3-up. Whoopsie.
They're always both on him. Why wouldn't you put him on there?
Exactly.
Absolutely. So the GK's just a boss. He's insane. He's the best unit in that entire army.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And Drago exists to turn the interceptors into insane murder machines. He's just like, cool, you guys reroll all hits, and then they're like, cool, we'll go stab that, right? And And I went half halberds, half swords because Leviathan just got nerfed. Now, when I get in and I want to wound your Tyranid warriors on threes, and I want to reroll ones to hit and ones to wound,
Yeah.
that hurts. Even
You
if -1 damage.
Yeah, you did exactly what I do, which is I usually put halberds on my interceptors and I put swords on my strike squads or terminator squads because with hammer hand, like you want the AP with AOC. Hammer hand means that you're usually rerolling most of your wounds anyway, except against Martyred Lady or Votan or
Right.
um, Iron
Salamanders.
Warriors, I think, and Salamanders.
Yeah.
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 But the like strength 6 on the halberds is a really sweet spot where like with sisters you're wounding on 2s. Against like orc vehicles, you're usually wounding on 4s now, not 5s. Like
Yep.
lots of that. It's a solid breakpoint, that strength 6. So I completely agree with you and how you broke this up. Not that you should seek my approval because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I I agree with your
I will
thought
listen to
process
anyone
there.
who is wise about GK because I love GK. Let's put it that
Well, you should get
way.
off this show then, because I'm just an idiot with a microphone.
That's
Speaking of,
called that's.
oh,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
sorry, man. I was just gonna remind everybody we have 10 viewers in here. We do these lives so you can ask questions. So please ask questions. That is. Otherwise, I would record this offline and I would edit it and it would look very professional. Instead, we're gonna do it live so you can see what a giant jackass I am usually. But so
I'll contribute to that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Throw me in.
Yeah. So the interceptors, I mean, they had the best glow up, I think, in the whole book. They, 2 wounds now. They're just fast as hell. They ignore terrain. They ignore models when they're moving. Just fantastic. They got baked in shock assault now, so they are always 3 attacks. Like, just I love interceptors, and I assume you're using them as just it's a threat. Like it's a threat they
Absolutely.
have to deal with. It's like Vanguard veterans minus the storm shields.
Well, yeah, and most of the time, I mean, you can pop them to Sanctuary anyway if you want, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've got that on Drago. Everybody's like, "It's 18 inches on Sanctuary." Yeah, it's 18 inches on Sanctuary.
Now,
I
yeah,
don't have to see you
I
either.
think
Yeah,
it I
that's
think it used
bananas.
to be 12, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, warp is 18 inches too, or gate, I should say. Gate, just like leaving. Everybody's always surprised by the range of those powers. It's like, yeah, man, I can kind of do it from a lot of places. Um, so yeah, the interceptors exist because um, I give you two unpleasant choices, which is okay. So if you want to try and move behind things to try and get to my tanks, you want to move out of the open. Cool. I have a bunch of stuff that can get to you. I can gate. I can drop in. I can use interceptors to get to you. I can use move to steal your objectives. I have a bunch of mobility in the list, and also the GK can just be like, "Oh, you shot me on your turn. I'm going to warp in 9 inches away from you, and then I'm going to stab you." Right? Um, so the interceptors exist to keep people away from me, and then you have to move. Then if you're like, "Oh, well, I'll move. I'll just blob everything into the middle," unless you're playing some list I don't know of, right? I'm probably going to kill you, right? Because I'm just going to annihilate you with demolisher cannons, right? And so um the most of the lists that um most of the lists where I ran into challenges were ones that said, okay, I have six. I don't know what army this might be, but I have 6 Raveners that I can cast onslaught on from 80 miles away, and they
What
can
army
advance.
indeed?
Oh, if only we knew. Right, absolutely. Or I'm going to just put everything into the middle, but I'm going to be behind a building, and all my guys have a 2-up save, and they have ASC, and they're getting cover, right? Okay, yeah, that turns. And then also there's 5 guys with it who are just incredible in combat. Yeah, that turns out to actually be a problem, right? And not to mention, well, anyway, I will get back. Yeah, those are the big assault armies that can just run at you. I wanted to make it so my list that nothing would outshoot me. Now I wanted to even Tau outshoot me sometimes, right?
I was gonna
But I wanted
say crisis. Those crisis blobs, man.
you can't talk about
Like they got rid of all the air bursts when they got the line of sight nerf, and they just went all to all plasma.
Yeah, no,
Like, ah.
absolutely. And I admittedly, so Tau, I should say that Tau, there nothing outshoots Tau, right? If you really want to be like, cool, I'm just going to be crisis seats. I'm going to be Riptide.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
mean,
other than those
they
things,
only play in one phase, so like give them their phase, right? Like,
right, right, absolutely, absolutely.
so then the final thing here, we got your Dread Knights. I see that one of them doesn't have a sword, which is not
Yeah,
surprising. We've started to see this lately, where a lot of the Grey Knights are just using the Dread Knights as gun platforms. It's not a lot of shots, or it's not a lot of high strength shooting, but it is a lot of shots. The silencer can chew through chaff really fast. Like Sisters in the open, Votant in the open, you know, Hormagaunts, Termagants in the open, they just wipe them out. Now I assume that's what you're generally shooting with these
yeah.
guys.
A lot of times the big guns will go into something. They can chew through armor. Because strength 8 minus 2 is, especially if you do the strat for +1 AP +1 strength.
Mm-hmm.
Um, strength 9 minus 3 2, pretty nasty. Especially if you hit something with amplification, you're just like, cool, this is strength 9 minus 3 3. Ow.
Yeah.
You can take out something like if you've warped or something, you can take out a railgun with that if you're accurate, right? Um, what I'll say about them is people forget that those DK fists are no joke.
Yeah, they're
Um,
not bad.
their strength 12 minus 3 2. Um, I can think of way worse stuff than that. So if you're like, cool, I want to punch this to death. And it's weird to me that, by the way, fists are greater strength than the sword is.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean,
yeah,
you got to balance it somehow. So the
you
sweep
do right.
attack is why you bring the sword, as you know. Like the sweep is just
Absolutely.
solid. So
And I went back and forth on hammer on the GK. I love the hammer because if you want to kill a hive tyrant, it's such a feels bad when you're like, all right, I got one through all your 4-ups and everything else. I'll roll a 1, right? And then you're
yeah,
just like in a
no,
very sad place,
yep.
right? Uh,
I feel that. I hate D6 damage because I feel like that's what you always. It's like las cannons, right? Like
it is.
you get one wound through, they fail to save, and then you're like take 1 damage.
Take 1 damage.
Suck
There's so many
that
highs and lows with that.
that high strength storm bolter shot. What do you think of that? um, so yeah, I mean the fists are pretty good. I mean
Yeah.
strength 12 is no joke. There's nothing in the game above what T9 that I know of. So your wounding on 3 is everything in the whole game.
Yeah.
How do you? I mean, we'll get into this more specifically, but you know, against armies with -1 damage, you know, that's halving your output. All these force weapons are 2 damage now, which is great
Yep.
usually, but like -1 damage, just like it's a thematic game to play against Death Guard, but yeesh, it like feels bad a lot of the time
It
when you're
does.
shooting at them or stabbing them.
It makes a very firm argument for Drago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go back and forth on Drago, right? And so what I like about him is -4/3, especially if you're like, hey, you know what, he can just reroll all his hits, right? Like he'll do a lot of damage, right? Like he's great for cleaning up score pecks. He's great, but you're right. There's
I love all this
he's not
specific Necron talk because you have to have a plan for Necrons right now.
You do, especially because their secondary game is so like I was talking to Jack Harpster about this, and he goes, "Yeah, sometimes at when I was playing, I would be playing Necrons, and I'd like go to sleep for an hour, and I'd come back and I'd have a 94,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, yeah,
Yep.
you're just doing a whole lot of nothing, right? And so the I'll say within that the -1 damage, the way I have to deal with it is I use Drago, I use Mortal Wounds. I hit you with D6 cannons. Um, and and the Death Guard, fortunately for me, is not a problem because I have Vengeance Arcadia, right? So you can be -1 damage all day long if I'm rerolling all hits and all wounds, right?
Mhm.
But there are places where I run into problems. I do not like playing into Custodes, Dread Knights, Dreadnought spam. I know no one loves playing into that list. And I did go back and forth on like multi-meltas on the Russes, but I wanted some long range shooting. And so I was like, okay, and also they're really expensive. And so I have to plan very carefully for that game. But when you think about it, the lists that have -1 damage, okay, so you can do it on Tyranid Warriors. You can do it on, I mean, the whole army of Death Guard does it, and then you can do it on Dreadnoughts. Those are mostly the places where you see it, right? And those are places where I have sort of a specific plan to deal with it, right? There are some things you can't account for, like Morden Vol being like, oh, I'm just going to have damage. Okay, well, I'm not
Yeah.
going to deal with you,
Yeah,
right? Like, no thanks,
that's
hard
so
pass.
that's so strong. So
I'll
strong.
get you with mortal wounds. No, you won't actually. So the answer is really mortal wounds, Drago, and then I'm going to shoot you with demo cannons. That's what I can kind of do,
Yeah.
right?
Fair enough. Fair enough. We have our first question.
Sure.
Sindri is asking, would it be better to change out one of the Dread Knights and use the points to increase the Interceptor squad, or bring more? Or are the DKs just a better utility piece?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've thought about going to more interceptors. Here's my qualm with them. Durability. Um, they're an amazing trade piece, but they also, and I will talk about this in my match where I actually played pure GK. One bad round of shooting and they're gone, right?
Yeah.
And they unfortunately, in my opinion, are about 10 points too high. Because you have for a lot of units that you have to trade for. Think about, okay, well, let's
You
put it this
mean
way, Ben.
10 points a model, or you mean like 10 points for the unit?
For the unit,
Okay.
they're about 2 points
Yeah.
a model too
Okay.
high. No, I
Yeah,
think they should be
that's
about 13 points a model. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
I
No,
was like, damn, man, that's insane. That'd be so that'd be
you know what?
yeah.
GK is at a 39% win percentage. So you know what? If that's how they fix it.
16 points for an interceptor, like, ooh, 30 of those guys all day, every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there would be more in the list.
Yeah.
The problem is you got to get 130 points back from them. Okay, so think about if you're think about them in comparison with something like Scorpec destroyers. Scorpec destroyers are 180 points for kill anything in the game, right? Or like Sanguinary Guard. I don't actually know how many Sanguinary Guard, but it's more than you should get for 130 points, right? Whatever number
How do
they
you
give
really
you is
feel?
due. Yeah, I can let you know. And so the my feeling is that the two interceptor squads are great as trade pieces. When someone moves into the open, especially if one of the things that I see a lot is here's Turvagon, here's 30 Termagants, and you remove them, right? And look, interceptors are good into that, but then once you move them out in the open, they're gone, right?
Yeah. No, it's
Um,
absolutely true. And then even if you do get five or all 10 interceptors getting stuck in, you still can't kill 30 Tervagons. Or sorry, Termagants. Like
you
there's
definitely
just
can't kill 30 Tervagons, that's for
not
sure,
not in melee. Like it's just,
right?
I mean, maybe between the shooting and the charging you can get all 30, but then like you said, now you're just kind of standing out in the open like, please shoot me. I have no invul. I'm just power armor. And AOC helps a lot, but like you're still just power armor.
That's right,
You
and
know what I
people
mean?
forget that. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still just Marines. I will say I played with a Paladin blob, and I ended up taking that out for very specific reasons, which
Because they're too
were
damned expensive.
they are too expensive. They're about in my and I am sad every time I look at the Brotherhood Terminators. I just quietly put them back on the shelf, right? Uh, just because they're nuts, but 200 points, they need to be about 170 is probably about right. Before I would consider them. Exit 110 are really, really good. And paladins miss their power sometimes, and then life gets really hard,
Yeah,
right?
I mean that's kind of the whole thing with the Grey Knights is like you rely on these powers. If they don't go off, I had one RTT where I brought Drago just to basically be like a gate bunny. That's all he did is
Yep.
he cast gate like every turn, and he failed gate every single time he tried to cast it for an entire tournament. It was
Are you
it was hilarious because he's like, no, I just don't want to cast gate today at all. So I hope you guys like walking.
are you a Rick? Are you a champion at the 3d6 gate that you fail and have to reroll and then also fail? I am amazing at
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you think about the fact that an entire army is based around effectively one power, and it's like
that.
this has to go off, and then it doesn't. You're like, okay, what? I guess, guess we're just
I
my Terminators are walking 5 inches up this board the whole game.
absolutely. And here's the thing, man. You can pay 500 points. You can be like, I got the big Terminator block. I got the I got the
Apothecary.
I got the APOC, right? We're gonna walk over there and be like, I'm gonna control the middle of the board. And even still, generally that'll be like, okay, cool, I own the middle of the board. But Tau doesn't care. Tau's like, yeah, now what? I think I can still remove you. And they're probably right, right?
Yeah,
Or it just doesn't end up being the most efficient use point. So anyway, it's a great question. Interceptor, and there's no question interceptors are good. I'm not making an argument otherwise. But what I'll say is, um, I hit a point of diminishing returns with them. And what I like about the DK is, then you can say, by the way, I have a DK in Deep Strike. It doesn't have a sword, but it has a gun. And there's also a strat that says when I pop in, I get +1 to hit, or maybe I can just make myself -1 to hit. If you have 2 CP, you want to do both, right?
yeah,
All of a sudden, people are like, you know what? I actually don't like that, and I don't want that to come in and shoot me in the face, especially if I have Repentia or I have something really, really, squishy. It keeps people honest. Let's put it that way.
fair enough. I mean, DK everything or GK everything in the whole army can deep strike. So yeah, that is always a
True.
threat. Always a threat. So let's last question about your list. So I know if you suit Grey Knights, you obviously lose tides. I think our tides are good, but they're not like game alteringly good. Like this army is unplayable if you don't have tides. They aren't that good.
Right.
But what do you lose with guard? I have no idea. Like I said, I don't play guard. I haven't even played against them, so I don't know. Do you lose
You
the
lose.
auto hits of 6 auto wound kind of thing? And okay.
That's all you lose.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
and yeah, it used to be that you actually didn't lose that either. Then they rewrote the rule because they remembered I existed. And so then they were like, Kyle's out there and he's gonna abuse this, and I was like, I am. That's correct. And so yeah, you don't auto wound on sixes. Most of the time, you don't need it. I mean, the big loss is that I can only take generic secondaries, right? I
Yeah,
cannot
I
take
was gonna
any.
ask about that too.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part, which is I have a very specific secondary plan for every army. And so I've mapped it out sort of multiple times of like, okay, I'm going to do this here and this here and this here. And the one of the nice things is the places where I would have a bad time on secondaries are not my worst matches. Meaning, the matches where I'm like, man, it gets a little tricky to figure out what my secondaries are going to be. Um, Generally, they're not places where it's like, oh, you can't take any psychic secondaries or something, right? So anyway, we'll get into that, but yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's get into your matchups real quick. Your first one was actually hilariously against guard. I know you have to go in what? You got like 45, 50 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So we're gonna have
I can
to
walk.
yeah. So we're gonna have to go fast, unfortunately. And remember, everybody viewing, please ask any questions that you have. That's why we're here. So
Yeah, why don't I walk? I'll walk you through it. So the fellow that I played, I should say names on here. Was I can't remember. It was a guard player, right? And so super nice guy. In fact, everybody who I played at this thing was really a delight. And so in
Looks
terms
like
of
it was
pairings,
Sean Miller was your first.
yeah, very good guard player. So here's what he's running. He's running trip Russes because that trip tank commanders,
Mm.
which is what you should be running, right? He's playing Cadian, so he doesn't have the extra range that I do. He then has um, something really annoying for me, which is he has 3 heavy weapon squads with mortars. Because they're Cadians, you can bounce orders around on them, and they reroll all hits because they sit. And so I do not like that because I have guard who just evaporate if you do it, right? And then and he also had 2 units of 30 conscripts, which are guys who you pop a. I played with it. I played this myself. He has an Inquisitor, so he gives him like a 5-up invuln, and then or maybe I think that was right. And then he would astropath them, so they're like termagants. They're like hard to kill. Um, and what happened in the game was he got to go first, and we were playing on 11, which is I think it's called Recover the Relics. And so he just like moved all his guys onto my objectives. And so of course the Grey Knights were frothing at the mouth. They're like, oh yeah, I can get in there and kill all that stuff, right? Stuff I took against him were, and this is actually a pretty typical set of like what I do for secondaries.
Mm.
Banners, because I can get 15 on it on that mission. Why wouldn't you, right? Just sitting on my own objectives. Psychic interrogation, because I can do it with 3 different characters, and I'm likely to get a 15 plus it generates CP. And then for my third one, I took prisoners because he had 50 million guys, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm going to have to kill those to win the game anyway, right? And it's not hard work, right? And that's a great rule for your secondaries. If you're going to have to do it, get points for it, right? Like that's
Yeah,
how it works.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so what I did was I hid for a good part of the game, right? The only guy who moves out is the GDK. He comes out and he's like, cool, bang, 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 bang. I'm going to kill a bunch of your stuff. I'm going to move interceptors onto your objectives. I'm going to shoot you guys with storm bolters. And then I slowly picked off with the Manticore the heavy weapon squads.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually I used the intercept once I'd cleared the conscripts. And one thing people forget about 11 is you only have at the beginning of the game you only have to clear you only have to get 2 in order to get an 8. That helps.
Oh, right.
So I did not want to deal with the Russes. One of them had Gatekeeper, which is a very unpleasant, uh, basically a very unpleasant relic that does 3 damage a hit. So the turn that I moved my tanks out to shoot, the same turn I had 2 squads of interceptors that could touch 2 tank commanders. Then I just forced him back, and I tabled him. I think on the bottom of 3 or the top of 4.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I mean
That's
he's
a
a really good
lot of,
player. He played it
yeah.
really smart. Archers don't have saves, right? Like
Yeah.
if you have enough guns, they just run out of saves, right?
Yep.
And so I ended up with a guy ended up with a maybe 100 on that one. I think that's right. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
You- A
So
hundred. Woo.
100 got the Inquisition. I'd hoped for more, but I'm also bad at math. So I got the Astropath. Was instrumental in making sure that I got Inquisitor that I got the actual
Mental interrogation.
interrogation. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Uh, so then that was it was a very good game. I guess that we're about to learn about this, but whoever decided the standing, whoever was like, oh, these are what is going to happen, was like, in terms of the pairings, was like Kyle needs to play the pure matchups, and then he can prove himself and move on to playing something else.
Yeah. I just want to mention one thing. So I have live casted an RTT once, and one of the players I was casting was a guard player with like 120 conscripts, and it was just like deployment took him forever, just because he's gonna put
Yeah.
down 120 little models and everything. It was hilarious, and then he's scooping up like 14 at a time.
When you play against someone with like 60 termagants, I always am just like, just go ahead and push the handful over there,
Yeah,
right?
just
They're in
shove
that
them
general
around.
area.
Yeah, we know where they are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So your round two, like you were just joking about, was against pure Grey Knight. So you did pure
Ah,
guard and you won with 100 points, and then you did pure GK, and I assume you won again.
I did.
Because this is a GK channel, we'll go into Cody's list here. He was rapiers, which is interesting.
More
Brought a
attacks.
chaplain with words of power, so he's apparently playing at the beginning of ninth when everybody thought that was a cool wombo combo. Um, Prestige paralysis is awesome. That's a cool little tech choice.
No Overwatch.
Yep. And then he had a librarian, Drago, 3 strike squads, apothecary, 8-man paladin squad, and 30 interceptors. Because why wouldn't you? So pretty
If you're playing pure
pretty
GK, you
cool.
should be probably running 30
Yeah, pretty cool list, honestly. No
vehicles.
dread knights at all. Just infantry.
He was like, oops, all infantry. And so Cody, super nice guy. We were playing the stupid mission, I believe is what it's called, 21, where there's no forward deployment. And so you'll notice I got a 78 here to win. This is a matchup where my secondaries are a little bit challenging
Mm-hmm.
because first of all, it's a weird mission. It's hard to take banners unless you just push really hard on one side. There's no way. Let me tell you. Let me also just say to everyone out there, if you're playing against GK, stop taking psychic secondaries. It's such a bad idea, right? He didn't, right? But like there's no sure like if you're playing Nids, okay, yeah, like you get 3d6 and I don't know, like the also the Hive Tyrant's invincible and you whatever, right? Like you were a book says, do you want to do this? Cool, go do it, right?
Nids.
Nids, right? Yeah, they've been nerfed like 3 times and they're still just outrageous,
Yeah,
right?
they're
Um,
still the best army in the game right now.
Still the best army in the game. Although I've heard, but now that shock tactics is improved, we should be seeing 70-80% win rates
Yeah,
for
yeah,
Space Marines,
for
as I
sure.
understand.
It's only because new players play them, dude. That's the only reason that they have a horrible win rate.
You know, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's hard. It's the say this when there's a reason that we use the phrase just marine bodies, right? That is a problematic
Well,
phrase,
I
right?
mean, it's because they're the middle, like they're the yardstick of which everything is measured, right? So,
True.
you know, ballistic skill, melee ability, durability, everybody, like, it's a marine equivalent unit, right? That's what we even
True.
call it when we're doing all of our, like, oh, this unit can charge in and kill 20 marines, right? That's just the yardstick everyone uses. So,
True.
um,
Absolutely. Um,
although, and Lexi is saying, he's like, everybody loves fighting hordes because everybody loves to just blow away tons of dudes. So play your hordes, let people feel good as they kill 12 or 14 models from every unit every turn.
I mean, I've played against the 120 cultist list, and I will say each time it happened, I was like, oh, so
Don't give Lex
right.
any. Don't give Levi any ideas. I don't want to fight any more of his fucking cultists. Just cultist
How many
carpet.
cultists? That was back when they were sold in the 5-man boxes or the 6-man was it 6-man boxes where they were just like, and these are the mono pose, right? And you were like, man, I'm sick of painting this one guy with an auto gun who's like crouching and peeing or
Just
whatever, right?
over and
It's the
over and
worst.
over.
The GK matchup, he was in the unfortunate position of having to go first, which is exactly what you don't want in that matchup if you're him, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm deployed so far back that he can't really get to me, right? And so all I want is for him to move into the open. Unfortunately, the way that this plays out, if you think about the layout on 21, you have 3 objectives right in a row where I can shoot most anything. You guys get because you got the middle, got you got your home objectives, or if you go the other way, you've got 3 objectives in a row. Demolisher cannons love that, right? Um, and so turn 1, you have to move out and try and take objectives, right? And so he puts out, I think, maybe two or 3 squads of interceptors to just remove. And he did a great job of denying. I take an engage on that one. I could play engage pretty well. I ended up, I think, getting an 8 on engage because he kept denying my gate very effectively. It's very hard to hide when I go in that situation, right?
Yeah, I've only done one like Grey Knight mirror match ever, and it was basically like, why are we even doing the psychic phase?
Stop doing this. It doesn't make sense,
like,
right?
We're just wasting time. I cast you tonight. I cast you tonight.
Because you did not. Yeah. I can tell you how the game ended, which is perhaps the most interesting part. Lehman Russ is sitting on my home objective, waiting for him to put anything out there. And then in the corners are the GK and 1DK just shooting things behind the wall, and then Paladins sitting on the home objective going, "We don't care about any of this," right? And
what a did you kill all his shaft? Like, why was he sticking his most valuable, like, best unit on his home objective?
He couldn't leave because as soon as he would have moved into the middle, I would have shot him with demolisher cannons, and I would have shot him with I would have hit him with a million attacks. I'd killed everything else. So all of the interceptors were dead. There were a couple units of strikes. It turns out if you kill everything else, the paladins don't leave. That's the key thing.
No, yeah, that's like they, I love the lore of the Grey Knights. I love like paladins, and I want to run them. They are god awful expensive now. And then like if I was in that position and I had to keep my 8-man paladin brick on my home objective, like that is just straight up like feels bad. Feels bad.
Yeah.
Like just feels bad. There's no way to make that feel good.
Absolutely. I mean, and especially when you're like, oh man, all these guys have OBSEC, and I'm just like, cool, I'll go ahead and move this infantry squad onto it. Now, mysteriously, the infantry are like, we will steal this from the paladins, right? What are the paladins doing? How are they not stopping that? Right? Like, they're like, nah, man, we're having dinner. We don't have time for this, right? It was a pretty cut and dry mission in a way because once I got to go second, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was just going to position around him, right? That's the plan.
Yeah. I mean, you have enough units you can envelop that way too, like
absolutely.
Like he can't hide from everything. You have too much stuff. So he's got to poke out against something. So this was a Games Workshop open, so it was the Games Workshop terrain. So the 4 big ass ruins, and then every table is the same, right? It's the same layout.
Kind of, yeah. Okay. I mean, it's the same like ladders of stuff.
It's the 4 ruins in each corner, or sorry, 1 ruin in each corner for a total of 4, and then they kind of skew them slightly, so they're sort of. It's not like they're perfectly aligned; they're kind of off a little bit.
Yeah, right? and then there's like 2 little like ruins that you can see through, and there's forests in the corners. And there's a lot of times forests in the corners, right? Okay. And again, there is some variation on the boards, right? But not much. And so you kind of know what you're getting into. And he didn't have almost any shooting, right? I mean, he's really just got bolters, right? Sure. The scariest gun on the board is Dragos, right? So
Mastercrafted Stormbolter.
Bang, 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 baby. So round 3. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say this seems like a perfect transition into round 3, which was against Death Guard.
And you can watch this match on Twitch, actually. So
cool.
This was.
I will stick that in the description down below afterwards.
So I played against a guy I quite like named Joe Gazowski. He's a very gifted player. He was on the unfortunate position of playing Death Guard into me. I might have mentioned that my strategy in that matchup was Vengeance for Katie. I also have a buddy who plays Death Guard, so I play them like most weekends, so I know
Yeah.
exactly how to have
So you have like lots of reps in the Death Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His list was some Blight Lord, or sorry, not Blight Lord, sorry, Death Shroud Terminators,
Of course.
two PBCs, the Land Raider.
Yeah. I
And
see that
the
actually.
land, yeah, the Land Raider. I didn't even know they still made Land Raiders. But
The Chaos one is good. It's
Chaos
T9,
one is good.
and the last cannons got buffed on
You
those.
do- So,
So
do
like
you want to have them in the
they're
back with your
they're
Noise Marines? Absolutely.
they're good now. Like
They are.
yeah.
Not
I
in DG though.
no, but
Not in DG. Sorry, I'm teasing, but no, you're right. I joke, but when they adjust the profile, yeah, they're more interesting. So I got to go first, which was bad news bears for him. It was on 31, which is Tide of Conviction. So his
oh,
so
that's the one with the big blob and the circ like right in the middle, right? And like the
parallelograms
yeah, and the deployment zones are
on a war
really close to each other. Like
really close to each
it's
other.
only like 18 inches from one to the other. So
So turn one, I moved out and just vengeance for Cadia, a PBC off the board. Um, and so I'd removed all of his armor by the end of two, I believe. Um, there was maybe he had two PBCs and a Land Raider. Um, I used and basically my assumption in that game is that the way on Tide of Conviction, the first player who is able to control all three in their own zone without getting interrupted is generally the player who wins. Um, and so he had a lot of objective secured models. He had 20-man Poxwalkers. He had two 10-man Plague Marines. Then he had two 5-man Death Shroud teams, which is a lot of beef, right? And so I took Interrogate, I took um, Banners, and I took, I think I ended up taking, maybe I took, no, I didn't take Engage. I think I took, I might have just taken something like Prisoners or something like that. I can't remember, but it's on the Twitch, so you can go look, right? Um, and
grind or something.
Grind, yeah. Grind is tough because he actually can kill stuff. And also, there's no guarantee that if you're killing two Death Guard units a turn, you're a different guy than me, right? Like,
Yeah, you're
they
gonna
don't want to.
I,
Oh,
I I
absolutely.
I find with grind sometimes like if I'm like rolling hot or I'm just playing really well, I run out of units to kill, and then it's like, oh,
That's
I only
exactly the
scored
problem.
9 on grind and not 15 or whatever. But
Um, absolutely. And so what I ended up doing was, he actually started to break through my lines because I ran out of bodies. He never killed. Let me make sure this is true. Other than the GDK, he never killed any of the vehicles. So they were just shooting at him the whole game. But the way the game ended was perhaps the most interesting, which was I ran in with the GK with the DK with sword, and with hammer hand, and stabbed the Poxwalkers to death. I also made an 11-inch charge with Drago, who just got in and killed a sorcerer, um, and then made it so at the end of the game, I controlled. I think I controlled his home objective and got four. Right.
did you
Um,
so you made an 11-inch charge? Like was that an 11-inch charge, or was it you needed like a 7 and got 11?
I needed an 11.
That's awesome.
Statistically probable is the word you're looking for.
You mean
It
improbable.
was definitely, yeah, absolutely. Oh, right, that's the one. Right, yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, no, I made some crazy charges, but it was closer than I thought it'd be because eventually the um, death shrouds got into me, into one of my objectives, and I just really couldn't do anything about them.
Yeah, they were
But I fortunately,
really tough.
really tough, and if you don't have AP, they're very hard to remove, right? If you don't have enough AP. So
And they
I
hit
ended up,
like trucks too. Like
oh my
they do
gosh, yeah.
so much damage with those scythes and stuff.
So
But...
Oh yeah, I ended up pinning him to a wall with the Lehman Russ with a charge, and then I
It's
used a strike because I had one strike left from fighting the PBC to steal back the objective at the end, right? So that's how it was a good game. Again, you can watch that one on Twitch. It's pretty exciting. And the beginning of the game is just Joe looking very sad because he's like, vengeance for Cadia, right? Like I'm just picking up his point click remove, right?
yeah.
Um, if you watch at about round 4, he starts to realize Kyle's not that far ahead on points, right? And he also was spreading sickness like a boss, right? He was like he gets like he flipped 3 of them right away, and then he flipped one of mine. It was
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, you are down with the sickness in a big way, right? So absolutely.
So you were feeling a little disturbed.
I don't understand that pun. That was when the copyright suit came out. Absolutely. Um, so my round 4 is where we start getting a theme here, Rick, which is, hey, it's Tyranids, right?
Yeah.
Do you like Tyranids? Here's more Tyranids, right?
So,
Absolutely.
spoiler alert, he plays Tyranids a lot.
It was an all you can eat Tyranid buffet, and I had my fill. So yes, guys trying to turn me into biomass. Playing against a list that was pretty darn impressive. And if you actually look at this guy's strength of schedule, it was like bananas. Um,
Yeah, so
this was
he played Leviathan because duh.
wouldn't you?
Hive Tyrant, obviously, Neurothrope, 9 Warriors, Tyrant Guard, Zonethropes, Biovores, Carnifexes, uh, and then he had another detachment of Leviathan with a winged Hive Tyrant, because of course, and then a
Right.
bunch of gargoyles. So lots of flying, lots of big monsters up in here. Yeah,
This is actually the scariest version of Nids for me, other than maybe like pure Kraken, right? And the reason is because those Carnifexes have very nasty, very accurate guns uh, that are 4 damage a hit, right? Three
yeah,
shots. Um, I was in the good fortune of going second. This was on, I think, 22. It was Circle of Death, right? Um, and it was not sticky, so it's 22. And so that, I think the name for it is, I don't know what it's called, but I had to position way, way back because any one of those Carnifexes can one shot a Lehman Russ, because it is it's -3 4 damage. If I roll poorly, I just die, right? If I don't get my 4 ups. Um, so my priority number 1 was just removing the Carnifexes,
yeah.
right? Um,
So just
Fortunately,
for
I haven't made.
giggles, I looked them up just real quick on Wahapedia. So those heavy venom cannons are strength 9, heavy 3, 36 inches, -3, 4 damage, and they're only 10 points.
Yeah, that's the fun part. That's something super cool about them, right? Is that they, and also, by the way, if you're like, oh, just engage the Carnifex in close combat, those are the words of someone who is not alive after
Yeah.
they say them, right?
The scything talons are strength 6 -3, 3 damage, and every time they attack, they get to make an additional attack with each talon. So you're looking
And
at,
they always take adrenal glands, so they're +1 strength, just in
yep.
case they needed it, right?
So you're looking at strength 7. What's that? And then each guy's gonna do 4, 5, 6. So every Carnifex has 6 attacks. That's strength 7 -3, 3 damage. Hidden
Yeah,
on threes.
yeah, re-rolling one of them as well,
Oh,
because they're Leviathan, right?
right.
So,
Yeah.
because they were like they're not quite good enough, and then they were like, let's just throw that in, right? Absolutely. So, um, what I will say is the way that this played out was that he moved all his Carnifexes forward, right? Um, and I was like, okay, cool. I have to kill as many of those as possible at any cost, right? And on Circle of Death, what I do is I immediately move the interceptors up to get to do banners on my natural expansion. I'm also going to move a guard squad onto there so that I have that, right? And then the other part of my plan is, hey, you know that other objective that you were supposed to go get? I'm going to make that as miserable as possible for you. So he didn't get control of his natural expansion ever. It
Your
never happened.
your term natural expansion is throwing me back to my StarCraft 2 days.
StarCraft days. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
It is
Or
a term.
StarCraft days as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Before I was a 40K player, I was a diplomacy player, meaning that I'm a terrible human being, right?
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. So I always think about where can you go first to get resources so that you can build things out, right? Um, and so he moved out the winged high. He had to basically give up his efforts to like steal my objective and maneuver everything over because I killed 2 Carnifexes on turn 1, and then I uh, took out. I think I took out something else that was going to bother me, and then I just kept pushing on his objective. One of the things that was really strong in that was having the GK with objective secured. That he just I wouldn't let him get there with anything that had objective secured, and I just kept not dying, which is a super strong strat that I highly recommend. Uh, which is
Just
just
rolling hot.
roll,
Yeah. Make all
yeah,
your
rolling a
saves and you're
lot
fine. Yeah. What's the
is
problem, guys?
100% effective, right? Yeah, making 3-up saves against the Hive Tyrant, then being like, I'm just gonna smash you with the sword, proves to
Oh,
be pretty
Drago
good.
is yeah.
Oh, no, I did it with the GK.
Oh, you used Servant of the Throne then. Okay, I got you.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Really good player, and again, my big advantage there was I got to go second that map. Where yeah, it was scary that he got to move his Carnifexes out, but if you can imagine, I spent a lot of my deployment just being like, okay, cool, can't see line of sight here, can't see line of sight here, like, and now we're gonna play it through that way. And he had no
Right.
choice but to move out. He's playing Nids, right? And then I can sort of force him back, and Manticore ended up being incredibly potent in terms of just doing a lot of damage to units that were in the back, making him spend to keep his warriors alive, right? That kind of thing.
And this is post the latest Tyranid nerf. So the Warriors lost. What did they lose? They lost
And
something.
they literally lost all transhuman. So it turns out wounding
Ah,
Tyranid warriors on 2s, going
super
from wounding
good.
them on 4s, yeah, it turns out to be very effective.
Who knew?
Who knew,
Um,
right? Yeah, who knew they weren't immune to damage?
um, so I look at a list like this with these Carnifexes, and if I'm playing normal like GK with no tanks to back them up, like you have, I don't even know these Carnifexes are T7, 9 wounds apiece. He brought 5 of them, in 2 different units. They have great shooting, great combat, great buffs from all of their like stratagems and stuff. So like, how do you, other than bringing demolisher cannons, like how do you deal with these damn things?
If you're playing, let's so
And they're
I actually
145 points each with all the upgrades. They're only 115 base.
I brought 3 of these to 1,000 point tournament because I'm a jerk, and 3 of the Carnifexes at one point. They are insane. I don't know what was in the rest of my list because I never used it. I was just like, cool, these Carnifexes. They're gonna eat everything you got. Um, so the way to deal with them, honestly, so they don't bracket, so that doesn't matter, right? They're very susceptible to -1 to hit because they're still just like hitting on 3s, hitting on 4s, whatever, right? Um, their save is really good, but they generally don't have an invuln except in one turn. So what I would say is if you have something like a multi-melta, you have pretty good odds of getting it through, right? If you have something like just a very high damage weapon, right? If you're like, I'm Votan, by the way, and I have a magma rail.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just remove a Carnifex. That's going to happen, right? So it's a resource that you can lose really fast, right?
Yeah, I'm just
Um,
thinking like as Grey Knights, right? Because we already talked about this. Like Grey Knights have a whole lot of low strength shooting.
yeah,
A ton of like plink damage. And I just don't I mean, even when you get in there stuck in with like your interceptors, strength 6 versus toughness 7, you know, you're only wounding on 5s into these carnifexes, and I don't know. It just seems
Hammers are not a
hard
good
to.
solution.
No, hammers are too expensive for uh,
Minus
for
2
Grey Knights
AP.
anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I
anyway,
recommend for Grey
sorry.
Knights bringing Demolisher cannons. I find that that
Okay.
that
All right. Yeah, I'll file that away.
yeah, absolutely. No, but no, Grey Knights, don't get me wrong, has some answers to it. Most of it is probably mortal wound spam in close combat, and having rolling all wounds. Does it require a lot of resources? Yes, unfortunately it does. Or casting Vortex of Doom on an 11 is also very strong, right? I love Vortex of Doom. It always does a lot of mortal wounds.
I love how your answer is roll better. Just if you always super smite, if you never denied, if you make all your armor saves, you're fine. Like, don't worry about it.
You're good. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'll win every time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. If you hit, I'll say this: if you have a GK and you hit that guy with a hammer, he will not survive that.
Yes,
Right?
that is true. I really have started to love the Great Hammer on the Grandmaster, because in Prescient Brethren, you spend 1 CP for reroll once to hit and once to wound. You're hitting on 3s, rerolling 1s, and you're wounding almost everything in the game on 2s. It's really solid, and it's D3 plus 3 damage. So just
he's just like, I'll make a paste out of it. Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. I know we're coming up on 7:30. I know you have a hard stop in about 20-ish minutes. So,
sure.
So that was your first game in Nids. Then you played Blood Angels, which, if I remember from our pre-interview talk, this was the guy that actually won the whole tournament, right?
Yeah. So Zach, super nice guy. So I was in the unfortunate situation that Blood Angels got to go first. I will tell you that is not good. So they are. I knew that inevitably that they were going to Forlorn Fury. They're gonna send a unit of death. What was the name?
Death Company.
There it is, to go kill a thing. You just get to be like, oh, there's one thing I don't like. So he picks smart. He actually made what would be considered a bad trade, but it was an amazing value, which was he came and traded his Death Company, Squad of Guard, and my Astropath. I had interrogating against him. That means I don't just get free 15 for doing that all game, right? I have to actually use Drago or the GK to do it.
Yeah, and that's so if you use your GK or your DK, your Grandmaster, that means you're not getting your CP every round. And if you're using Drago, that means he's not casting Gate or Sanctuary, and that sucks.
Yeah. Yep. And so he traded me basically 120 points for 95, but it was a good trade. Mm-hmm. So then I will tell you that he was considering, he's like, well, he's like, I have no idea what to do against your list. And I was like, well, I'm surprised to learn that, because this is what most people test against, right? Is they're like, I need to prepare for GK plus Astra. Like, that's not happening, right?
Yeah.
And so I spent most of the game just trying to keep away from him, but he made the right choice. The right choice against my list with Blood Angels is I'm going to move everything into the middle, and then I'm going to just try and smash you, right? And I was able to push out on some flanks. I also made one bad mistake, which was, you'll love this. It was the bombs mission. I successfully detonated 4 bombs in his area by having a strike squad, an infantry squad that just walked up and was like, "Cool, I'll put a bomb down. I'll put another bomb down." And then the strike squad dropped in and was like, "Oh, here's more bombs." But it didn't give me enough in my back line, right? And so eventually his Sanguinary Guard, they made good charges. You know, if you ever want to know how a mission, basically a mission went, you're playing against Blood Angels, just ask whoever you're playing. Oh, did Blood Angels make their charges? Yeah. Okay. Oh, so you lost the game.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
So
right. Absolutely.
It did horribly. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It
was a.
Oh.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna say, I'm looking at this guy's list, and I'm not expert Blood Angels player. I'm not an expert in anything, actually. But like, just this is a pretty interesting list. He brought some cool tech. He brought eliminators. He
Did.
brought uh, a whirlwind, which is you
Yeah.
never see whirlwinds.
You
Shitload
can turn off
of
Overwatch
sanctuary.
with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's which for him is got to be amazing. Um,
Huge.
then a whole bunch of sanguinary guard, of course, because why wouldn't
Right.
you? Just a really interesting list, actually. Sanguinary
Dax.
priest, the name sanguinary priest. He brought Dante. It's a cool list.
Yeah, and it was. Um, he played it very well. It's a strong argument for something that I believe, which is, look, you pick a list that's competitive. But also, you play what you're really good at, right? Play what you're really good at. And he was a very good Blood Angels player. And I mean, I think people were surprised that Blood Angels won that event. It didn't surprise me at all, because it's to my mind the strongest version of Marines that you can put out there. And if you play it well, have so many tricks. Oh, you're only going to fight this character. Oh, I can heroically intervene here. I can do all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
That wins games. It really does, right? Um, so I played that, lost to that. I went to the bathroom. I whipped myself, right? I did the lashes like you have to, right?
Of course,
Um,
yes.
and absolutely,
Definitely, we're big on the self harm here.
That's
On
a
my
great thing to
channel.
endorse.
Yeah, yeah. You got to do
I'm
your
just teasing, of
penance.
course.
I know, I know.
Absolutely. But then I had to do my penance because I had to play the sisters, right? Um,
Ooh,
so um, this is not a great matchup for me, in the sense that I don't get any psychic secondaries because your
he
opponent
can
is
turn
going
him
to
off on a 5.
a 4. They turn them well, yeah, they turn them off on a 5 with the rights, but they don't even bother with that because what they're going to do is just turn them off on. And so fellow and so my strategy in this game, to give you a quick synopsis, was as aggressive as possible immediately.
Yeah, you gotta
Because
grab him by the belt buckle.
you do. Otherwise, you are just done.
So many
So
multi-multis in this list too.
so many multi meltas. So I spent most of the game just moving behind him, shooting Repentia, taking Repentia off the board with mortars, blowing up rhinos. I took grind and I got 15 on it, um, which is unusual in the sense that against most armies it doesn't work, right? But against sisters, my plan is always engage grind banners or engage grind R&D, right? Which means I have to spend most of the game messing with their secondaries. There are some secondaries, such as, for example, Leap of Faith, which I can't interact with, but I can sometimes stop you from cleansing the land or whatever it's called. I can sometimes stop you from, you know, whatever else you want to do, right?
Whatever it's
Um,
called.
yeah, it came down to be a very close game, and at the end of it, um, I basically just made it so I had killed everything that was on one of his objectives. And to go back to something I mentioned earlier, I moved my platoon commander onto his objective.
Uh-huh.
So there was this annoying 3 wound guy who was just sitting on his objective that he couldn't get rid of. Right. I had to kill Celestine twice. I had to kill his. I had to kill
As you do.
his Canoness twice. I felt like I was killing everything twice. Right. So
Well, good
it was a
news.
good.
Those count for grind each time, right? So
Absolutely right. Just keep killing them. That's all you can do, right? Absolutely. um, so played sisters, and then I played 2 final matches, and I'll let you guys guess what those might have been.
right.
What would be an army we would see at the top
Definitely mono guard.
Mono guard, mono
Yeah.
admech, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah.
The strength almost too strong. Um, these missions were a little bit. I hate to say it, they were really good games, but they were a little other. They were a little bit less exciting because it was Kraken Nids doing exactly what Kraken Nids wanted to. They got to go first. And they also did something really strong, which was they made all their 4-ups with their hive tyrants. Right. I missed a 5-inch charge with a reroll, which I don't recommend as a strategy. And then I it was a game that was one of those games where I was hitting the hive tyrant with a sword, one, one,
Yep.
and then it's like, cool, I got a 5-up, so I just negated your little storm bolter you hit me with, right? So with the game into Kit Smith, ended up losing by 3.
Oh
Um,
man, I mean, like it sucks that you lost, but I love those nail biter close games. Those are like
it was
why I play this game.
oh yeah. Um, it was he did one of the things I will say that my list has a big problem with is Death Leaper. Dude, Death Leaper is a freaking boss. The guy counts his OBSEC, he counts his extra models, he does all of this other stuff.
Is he a lictor?
And the lictor.
Okay.
So Death Leaper also has weird stuff. You can't use, I think it's like you can't do actions or stratagems around him or things like that. Like he just does a bunch of
Wow.
bizarre stuff. Yes, I kid you not. Um, I'll have to look it up, but yeah, Lictor is no joke. Not Lictor, sorry, Death Leaper is no
Yeah.
joke. He leaped into my lines and then he leapt into my heart. Um,
Aw.
but Kit was a hell of a good player. Then, by the way, played his friend this weekend and defeated him, so I feel a little vindicated, right?
Oh wow, yeah. I'm like reading his special abilities now. I didn't know any of this. So he is always -1 to be hit. Um, if he's receiving the benefits of cover, he cannot be targeted at all outside of 12 inches. He has a 4-up invul. And yeah, if any enemy unit within 6 inches of him cannot perform actions, just straight up cannot
Gonna
perform
get my
any
banner
action.
back up, right?
He
Uh,
fights first. He has fight first. And then he has all the other like uh yeah, and then he has fear of the unseen. While an enemy unit is within engagement range, that unit cannot use stratagems, and it cannot be affected by stratagems.
so what his data sheet actually says is, hey, do you want to do something? You can't do that, right? Like just like and so he got him onto my objective super early, which was super smart. Locked me out of being able to do what I wanted to there, and then he just piled a bunch of stuff into him, right?
That's a really cool
Nine,
unit.
nine. Um, so and then in my final match, just to talk about it real quick, I it was Leviathan with Turvagon, and then how many Termagants can you fit in the list was the question that he answered, and it was like a lot, right? Um, and the most interesting thing about that game with Jason Merton, which I ended up winning, was the way I won the game was he had cranial feasting. I have a tip for anybody, by the way. If you're playing against cranial feasting is like when they eat your sergeant,
Nom, nom,
they
nom,
can
nom.
get power from their brains, right? Um, when somebody shoots at your squad, you know how you never pull your sergeant? Pull your sergeant, because then they can't cranially feast on them. And so, like I have guard squads. Whenever he would shoot at him, I'd be like, cool, I'm pulling the sergeant, pulling the sergeant. The way it works, cranial feasting, at least as I understand it, is when they get into close combat with you, they get points for killing a sergeant, but then they roll a dice. I think it's if they get a 6, they get a CP, and they get like 3 more points, an absurd number of points. Right? So really strong play is just if you don't give them that to feast on, right?
Oh yeah.
If you deny
Okay.
the feasting,
I thought, oh hey, more cats.
cats,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this is one of their secondaries, and this explains why I've never heard of it, because you usually don't hear Nids taking any of their own secondaries. Nid players say that they're absolutely garbage. So this is you score 3 victory points if you gain 1 command point during battle because of this, and that's the whole eating thing. So you also gain command points from that. Definitely, they want to eat your characters as well. And then they get a bunch more. Yeah, that's really crazy. And then they just get victory points uh, for killing your warlord and all kinds of stuff. Interesting.
It's the stuff they want to do.
Yeah, I never even knew that existed because nobody ever takes it. You know.
Well, Rick, I'm afraid I'm being pulled away by the real world.
It's all good, man.
Between the pets and the children. But dude, it's been such an honor to come on and talk with you. Such a pleasure, and thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks a lot for making the time. I had a great time. We had solid viewership the whole way through, and then you'll also be able to see it after this as well on my channel. For everybody who's still out there, thank you for showing up. Don't forget like and comment and subscribe, all that jazz, and share. And don't forget to call your mother.
Well, so many good recommendations right in a row. Absolutely.
And then I will get with Kyle after this. I'll find that Twitch stream. I'll put it in the description. So for anybody who's interested, that will be up in a few minutes, I hope. If it isn't, it's because Kyle is a busy man. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk more in the future. So, all right, everybody. We will see you later.